every industry is always going to be $1 billion industry or something that they can, if we don't, so you can show your little sliver. If we can take 1% of the $1 billion or whatever, or something stupid. And then you have the people that are like, this is a $1 trillion industry, which already is a huge red flag for me. As soon as they mention trillion, I run for the hills, because it's like, let's try and generate a couple $1,000s first before we start talking about trillions. You don't even know how many zeros are in that. Okay, let's keep it down. But people just don't understand, and I feel like in this day and age, you can go to places like OpenVC.app and you could read an article in 5 minutes that shows you what we think is a great pitch deck, how it should be structured.
Labs podcast by SundayPyjamas.
What are the things that you are thinking these days, and what's up with you in general?
Wow. I'm like the weather. Things change hourly for me. It's my. I guess we could break it up into passion projects and into business projects. On the passion side, I'm pretty excited because I have a screenplay I wrote for a feature film that already has a producer, already has a pretty solid director, and that is being sent out to talent and raising money. So that's pretty exciting to me because as a polymath, I taught myself screenwriting, I taught myself the entire business. um, you know Took me a very long time to get it down, and I'm still learning. So we have that again, on the past project side, I have Utopian Journey, which is my Substack, about to crack 23,000 subscribers. It's a freemium newsletter for mental health, mental wellness, motivation, inspiration. Are we going to have a link below? Let's click the link below.
Yeah, I've been reading the newsletter.
Oh, thank you. So we have that goes out every Sunday, and then usually during the week, depending on the week, I send out an additional one. Different topics, has custom drawn art based on the comic book that I'm also going to release for it when it's finished, which I also have to teach myself how to do. So that's on the passion side, and then on the business side, which is also kind of entwined to passion. I do content for OpenVC. Again, we should put a link, openvc.app. So I do a lot of venture capital, tech, entrepreneurship related content regarding the entire ecosystem. I also host the Pitch Deck Roasts. Next one is coming up October 25th. We do it once a month where me and a prominent investor roast 3 pitch decks live from willing consenting founders in front of a live audience of investors and founders. Some come for the knowledge and some come to see me, i.e. the entertainment. So we do that. And then I just work with various startups. I mean, I'm involved in a small venture fund that's going to be launching. I work with startups across the spectrum, everything non-technical, from content to fundraising to strategy. As long as it doesn't involve computer code or anything technical, I probably have done it or I will do it. And I'm always speaking at different universities or podcasts or panels, whatever people want me to do. I'm always available unless it's something really dumb. I don't do the dumb stuff, and believe me, there's a lot of dumb stuff.
I see. And I have been reading the newsletter Utopian Journey, and I would say I like the writing style where you are directly talking to the readers and kind of guiding them from the, I would say, the mental valleys people fall into, and you're kind of.
You're so kind. Mental valleys. I would say the mental abyss. But thank you. That's yeah. It's a valley or an abyss depending on your perspective.
Yeah, yeah. So the question about the Substack, which I was very curious about when I was reading it, right, is that the one thing that I was able to gauge is that you really have a lot of clarity when you're writing. Is it something that you have when it comes to everything you work on, or is it particularly for the Substack in general?
So as far as writing, it's for everything I work on. If I don't have clarity, I have to research into it further. And if it's something I really don't like, I won't write on it. For example, if I have to write on credit derivatives, and we can look up what that means together. it's I'm not the guy to write on credit derivatives. I'm not the guy to write a white paper on the latest decentralized blockchain offering from whatever. Like stuff that's very very technical is not interesting to me. And if it's not interesting, it's not going to be fun. With that being said, I've written a lot of different topics for content. I've written 4 books. Two of them were bestsellers. Each one was a different topic. It has to be fun to me. It has to be, writing in general. You have to have a general idea of a beginning and a middle and an end. As simple and childish as that sounds, but that's how it works. For me, I know how something's going to end. I work backwards because the one thing a lot of writers, have trouble with is that they just get into something and they find themselves 20,000 or 15,000 words into a project and then they don't realize what they're doing. They don't know what's going to happen. They don't know how they're going to end it. They didn't do enough research. So for everything I do, I kind of know like the end for it and then I circle back. But it's very rare that I have trouble, especially for the newsletter, especially for, the stuff that I'm comfortable with. It's very rare that I have trouble coming up with stuff unless I'm mentally tired that day. I've noticed that because I work every day, I work 7 days a week. I noticed that usually 1 or 2 days a month, I can't think. There'll be like 1 or 2 days where it doesn't come to me, and I know to listen to my mind and not to even mess with it. And those are the days where I'll answer emails, but I won't do anything heavy. I might just read, chill, stay away from anything because anything that comes out those days is not going to be good. And a lot of people, especially writers, are be like, "Oh no, you have to write every day, and even if it's terrible, it's better than nothing." I'm going to counter saying no because it's a waste of time. Like if I sit there for 5 hours and I use nothing with it, I lose 5 hours of my life, and I'll use one sentence when I could easily just rest and come back the next day fresh and be extremely productive.
Hmm. And I also saw that the Utopian Journey received an award very recently from how does that work out? Did they reach out to you? You reach out to them?
Yeah, so that was so I get a lot of different praise for it because I'm plugged into a lot of different like organizations and schools and whatnot. So it received a SDG award for UN Sustainable Development Goals because it has to deal with mental wellness, which is goal 3.1 on the SDG list. So it was awarded that award from the European Tech Consortium. It's a Substack featured publication, which means that Substack, the platform that I write it on, champions it. So depending on the time of day that you visit Substack.com, it'll be there. You can click on it and join. Um, yeah, just there's a bunch of different things with it. I mean, they're cool, but at the same time, as someone that has a lot of different like accolades and stuff, it's kind of like I don't seek the rewards. I'm not like, oh, we need more stuff to put on the wall. Like I don't. I mean, I have actual physical awards I've received. I don't even know where they're at. They're probably somewhere. They're probably in a box or something. It's not like I have them on display and I have to look at them and there's like a shrine to my genius. It's nothing like that. It's something that's cool and it's something to me. I'm more concerned with actually helping the individual reader and having an impact on people that read it that actually take action, whether that's to start a company, change a career, take up a new hobby, get into writing, whatever the case may be. I mean, the whole thesis behind it is that if you're not taking action towards something, then mentally you stagnate. And I feel like countless people today, they're stuck in these jobs they don't want to do. They don't know how to get out of these career paths that they were probably pushed into. They have goals, they have these ambitions that everyone tells them are impossible, and they have no recourse to turn to, no place to go to find actual knowledge that's actionable. I mean, a lot of people write a newsletter for the readers to read for knowledge. I write a newsletter for the readers to read for action. So that's why a lot of the main points is taking action because there's limited time, there's limited resources, and it's going to get harder. It's not going to get easier. It's going to get much harder, and one day people are going to look back and be like, I could have done something. I should have, how did this happen? What year is it? I mean, it happens to all of us. So, the sooner you at least make some attempt to go after your goals to make them a reality, whatever they may be, the better your life is going to be.
Hmm. And looking at everything you are doing at the moment, I could not I would say figure out the decision making process behind, you know, choosing, okay, this is the kind of project I want to spend my time on, because all of us have 24 hours in a day. So how does that decision making process look like for you, right? Like, how do you decide? I'm sure, you know, you come across a lot of dumb stuff, but even in the good stuff, right, you definitely have to choose, even amongst the good stuff, okay, this is worth my time for this year or for this day or for this month. So how does that process look like for you?
So the 24-hour day is not as fixed as you may have meant to. You may have been conditioned to believe. We have some control over time because it's kind of a made-up construct. Um, and I don't look at stuff by hourly how it's accomplished. I look at it by how long, can it get done? I don't care how. I don't count the hours. I don't, even though I'm very cognizant of my time, I don't really be like, oh, from 3 to 5, this is when I'm going to block off. I don't. I've never done that. I just, if I'm interested in something, I'm going to do it. And if I'm really interested, I'm not even going to pay attention to how much time has gone by. Um, I mean, you can see I have a window next to me. Sometimes I'll start something with its sun's coming in, and then it'll be sunset. I'll be like, wait, what happened? Like I'll forget to eat. I'll forget. I'll just be so focused, which is good. Because those kind of projects are rare. But as far as my thought process, I mean, one, it has to be something that I'm generally interested in, that I can really get into, because anything you undertake is going to take a long time. I'll give you, for screenwriting, for instance, I was dabbling in it since 2015, and now we're in 2022. So it took 7 years from dabbling to being like, all right, now this is the furthest we've gotten. Going to raise millions of dollars. Going to hopefully be shooting next year. Going to actually break into the industry and make my mark. Um, Most people can't last 7 hours. Okay, so 7 years of learning and teaching and trying. I mean, you have to really, you have to have a passion for it. So it has to be something I'm interested in. If it's something like a startup or some new project that someone brings to me, one, there has to be compensation of some sort, and I don't mean equity or tokens or anything like that. It has to be, essentially, I have to be compensated for my involvement, unless it's something that I reach out to someone for and say, I just really want to be involved because I like what you're doing. Because there are cool things like that. Unfortunately, a lot of those people don't get back to me, so they're lost. But yeah, it's just something that, again, it has to be compensated. There has to be compensation. There has to be something that I could really sink my teeth into and really like, okay, I'm going to open the doors. I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to create this. I'm going to get things moving. Just because I have a variety of connections in different verticals. And it has to be something that just has a right feeling. It has something that, it has to feel like this is something that I don't want to do it and then regret being like, oh, why did I commit to this? Because you want to have something to show for your time. You want to have something to show, not the hours, but your overall the years. So whether it's a learning experience, whether it's being part of a company that, even if the company failed, you learned a lot, and you were compensated somewhat, and you can take those skills and those connections to something else. um, it has to be something like that. It's just, a lot of things don't interest me. That's just the way it is. I mean, people come to me with a lot of stupid stuff because they want to get my help with it or investment or something, and there's just things that I just have no interest in. It doesn't excite a single cell of my body to be like, yeah, put me on board or let's talk. It's it has to be something, and it's different for everybody. Some people are into blockchain and they're blockchain enthusiasts and they love blockchain, and me, I'm like, blockchain, what is that, offense? Like, I don't care. It doesn't excite me as much as it excites them. So yeah, it just has to be the right thing, and different things excite me. I mean, different things really push the envelope, and it also depends on the person too. If it's someone I can learn from, someone I have a good vibe with, someone that I can have a good relationship with, that, we can work well together, then that's also a big factor. Because I think the two hardest things in the world right now are finding something that you really love to do that you can make into a business that can be profitable, and finding people that you really love to work with. Finding people that are normal. They're not insane, and they're not, they're not these people that don't sleep and they're on WhatsApp every 5 seconds and they demand a response and they send you 50,000 Slack messages. Like, you don't want that, because it's not going to work out. Sooner or later, you're going to want to strangle that person or yourself. So, it's about finding the right people, and it's really tough. I mean, I've dealt with thousands of people, like thousands of customers, so many associates in different verticals, and maybe there's like a dozen that are just like I vibe with, that we just have the same mindset, we click, and they're just cool. And it's very hard to find that because a lot of people right now are just they're in a rush to go nowhere. They don't have a destination. They're trying to they're trying to really accomplish something, but they don't know what it is. They don't know how to do it, and most of the time it turns out that I'm the one that knows how to do it, but I won't do it because it's like, this doesn't make any sense. I can't help you with this, and this is kind of it's, I don't want to say it's a fool's errand, but it's a fool's errand for me because I'm just not the right person for it. And once you come along, once show me that you've done it for a year and that you have something behind it, whether it's customers, some sort of metrics that you're doing to show me that you're real. Because a lot of people just give up. I mean, it just within 6 months, not even like a year, not it just. I talked to people at the start of this year, and now we're in fall, and the people that were doing stuff at the start of this year, whether we're starting a newsletter, starting a company, whatever, they've just changed, they've given up, and you don't want to attach yourself to something or someone that has like a 60-day, a 120-day, 180-day lifespan. You have to be involved in the long haul to make things happen.
Yeah. And the way you put it, that people are so busy going nowhere, that people are rushing to go nowhere. Do you think that is also the reason that mental health issues have been at an all-time high in the last couple of years, I would say?
I'd say it's been at an all-time high from a variety of factors, but I think definitely the it's good to have this, like, this hustle to go after something, but you need to have something to go after. And people don't realize the amount of research and effort it takes to define the objective. And I just don't think we're resilient anymore, because you have to be resilient in going after what you want. So in the rush to go nowhere, you're going fast, but because you don't know where you're going, what you're doing, how to get there, who to work with, how to budget, the overall end goal, it's going to fail. Then you're going to be, because you're not resilient enough to stick with it, you're going to be kind of like mentally crushed. And then you're just going to like go on to something else that might be easier and might not be as rewarding, and you get stuck with it. I think just mental health right now, I mean, it's just, there's been a downward, pull of society that pulls everyone with it. And there's just an overall lack of resilience and lack of persistence that comes with it. And I feel like, it's very hard to exist today, and that's the problem that people aren't addressing, is that, yeah, take a walk or meditate or go gluten free. I mean, there's always some stupid little tidbit that is people champion to be the end of your problems, and they're avoiding the problem of existing in 2022. They're avoiding this kind of technological dystopia world we're entering, this digital gulag, this place that no one's prepared for. I mean, we've become a society that is so ingrained in social media, where it's like we need to have that dopamine, we need to have hearts, we need to have likes, we need to have shares, we need to have strangers telling us that we're beautiful and that we're awesome and that we're the coolest thing ever and that we're killing it and we're crushing it and fire and we're lit and blah blah blah. And we don't get that. It could be the best idea in the world, and we don't get that, we become destroyed. And the best ideas in the world usually have to go through the process of getting destroyed. I mean, it's like, if you take visionary entrepreneurs, we can say Steve Jobs, you're going to have a computer in your home. And he said this at a time that computers were these gargantuan machines that you had at the office, and they weren't fun. You sit there and you type data into it. You want to have that in your home? Are you insane? Why do I need one of those in my home? So people weren't quick to get behind that. And I feel like if you came up with something like that today, no one would be quick to get behind it because it's such a crazy idea. But that's what every idea. It's the same thing. Like Henry Ford, his famous quote was, "If I listened to what my customers wanted, I would have built a faster horse." Like, we didn't need cars in the early 20th century. We had horses and buggies, and they worked just fine. Why do I have to have a car? Like, so there's a lot of pushback for any idea. And I feel like now, because people are bombarded by so many different platforms, so many different social media streams, so much data, so much content, so many opinions of others, especially the opinions of people that are never going to meet, that it's very hard to sit there and focus. And I feel like if you're going to be, you know, mentally strong, you have to have something to shoot for. You have to have something to focus on that makes existence not only bearable but fun. I mean, the great writer Samuel Beckett once remarked, "You're on Earth. There's no cure for that." And that's kind of how I look at it. And if you want to go back further, German polymath Goethe once said that our planet is the insane asylum for the universe, and it's kind of it's true. So it's very hard to, I think, have something you can stick with, have something that you can keep going with, something that fulfills you personally and gives you that mental strength to keep going when everything else is kind of crazy. I mean, and being in a pandemic didn't help when people have nothing to do all day but sit there and Netflix and look at their screens. And I mean, so many different things. I mean, if you look at just what was trending during the pandemic, other than the pandemic, it's like Tiger King, uh, GameStop stock, anti-vaccines, conspiracies, like just everything was just like there's always something, and I mean, I came up with Utopian Journey during the pandemic because I didn't want to, blindly follow what everybody else in the world was doing. I wanted to create something that I could use my time wisely, and I could use my time learning, and I could use my time creating, and I could use my time helping, and I could, show that I had something that came out of 2020. That most people are going to say 2020, I want to forget it. And me, like, that was like a great thing for me. That was a great thing for me to be able to just sit here and just learn. I spent 2020 virtually networking, learning about venture capital, learning as much as I could about mental health and philosophy and reading and writing and just, focusing, putting in every day, 7 days a week, just working like it was my full-time job to become, the best version of myself possible. And that's kind of, what I did. And I feel like everybody wasted the opportunity to sit there and do something. They just wasted it complaining. And I feel like, if they actually did something for their mental health rather than complaining about it and suffering from it, they'd be much stronger. I mean, you know, I don't want to come off as being, as being too mean, because it's not being mean. I mean, being a human, you have certain responsibilities, and facing adversity is one of those responsibilities. People forget the trials and tribulations of a generation ago or 2 generations ago. They forget what their grandparents had to come through. I mean, to go through. I mean, it's just very, it's kind of like, I feel like, because they're so focused on Instagram and we don't really have, a grandfather on Instagram telling us how they came to, whatever country with no money and then built a business and a family and did everything. I don't think people today could do that. They have to be like, oh, I can't do it because of this, because I don't know it, I don't have the experience, I don't know how to. There's always excuses, and I feel like the excuses now are more paramount than ever. And there's a George Bernard Shaw quote that I often use, that says, "The people that get on in this world find their circumstances, and if they can't find them, they make them." That's it. That's one of the secrets for anything. If you can't find it, you have to make it, and it's not going to be instantaneous. And you can't do a Google, sheet for it, and you can't do a survey, and you can't, go on TikTok. You have to really find it, experiment, see what works, see what fails, and see where you are a year later, 6 months later. You want to have a growth trajectory of the self. You want to know that, hey, last year I was out of shape, but this year I'm in the best shape ever. Or last year I was working this terrible job, but this year I started a side hustle and I'm probably going to quit that terrible job. Like, there's so many things you can do to improve yourself, but no one's going to do it for you. And there are plenty of people out there that will tell you that, well, if you follow me, buy my course, come to my paid retreat in the Azores, whatever it is, then all your problems are going to be cured. You're going to be rich, successful, happy, attractive, all that. And really, I mean, you can be rich, successful, happy, attractive, all that, but you have to put the work into it. You have to actually, treat yourself as the best project ever. You have to create yourself and create the future you want to be. And that's just what I do. I mean, I've had plenty of failures. Most people, they shun their failures and they hide. Me, I mean, they're kind of transparent, because they're learning experiences. I feel like, steel sharpens steel. So you have to face losing money. You have to face failing in a business. You have to face failing in a class. And I feel like we've been as a society conditioned to avoid failure. Like when you fail at a class or a test, it's terrible, but failure is kind of it's we need failure because success is a lousy teacher. Failure humbles you. It makes you, reevaluate your plans, your goals, your life. It makes you kind of experiment with what went wrong. Whereas success kind of, oh, I can do anything. And I mean, when I was much younger, I had a lot of early success, and I think that was kind of a detriment to me because it made me very arrogant. It made me think I could do anything. It made me think, that I was above everything. And for maybe a brief amount of time you might be, but we all come crashing down to reality sooner or later. So it's better to go crashing down at a younger age, when you can afford to lose money and you can afford to be cocky, but you don't want to be going into your 30s, 40s, 50s with this brashness, with this egotistical self, never experiencing failure, thinking you're the best, because what you lose could be something much greater: a house, a career, a reputation, something that is it's going to take a very long time to rebuild.
You mentioned that you used the time of the pandemic to understand about venture capital. And I'm also thinking that you must have done this over and over again throughout the course of your career. Like you mentioned that you learned screenwriting in the last 7 years, and now the whole project is gonna be produced in a couple of months. And I hope as soon as
Hope so. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We're shooting for next year. Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
yeah, yeah. So when you say right that you were researching on venture capital, and you're also working with OpenVC right now. So how does that process look like? Because I would say VC is a particularly different kind of field of study to get into.
So essentially, it's during the pandemic, I was meeting with a lot of venture capitalists because I want to understand their thought process. I want to understand the business. I mean, I was involved in entrepreneurship before, but I come from a background of let's just do it ourselves. Like what do I have in my wallet? Who do I know that I can ask? I never really went the venture route. But during the pandemic, it became interesting to me because venture capital was funding so many different unicorns, and it was kind of a boom. And I wanted to just understand it, the history, how people think. So by doing this, I made a lot of connections, because I mean, I was always plugged in with startups, and startups were, because everyone saw that venture was writing a lot of checks. People were coming to me and saying, "Hey, do you know any people here in this vertical?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." So, I got much better at identifying opportunities, pitch decks, how VCs think, what they look for, and essentially just training myself to be, if I was a VC, how would I act? You know, just giving myself an education. Because there is, even if you go to school, there's university, I mean, there's a financial path, but there's not an actual venture capital path because you need a variety of skills. um, I'm not a financial guy. I'm an opportunity guy. If you were to ask me, okay, well, here's a Google sheet and change the formulas and plug it in, like I don't know how to do that. Okay, that's something I call someone and hire someone to do. Just get me the end result. So I don't understand that, but I understand the psychology of it. I understand how to value an idea, how to value an investment, how to value a founder, the psychology behind the founder, the psychology behind, the growth trajectory, all of that. So it just prepared me. So when I saw the opportunity with OpenVC, I already had the network prepared, of people that I could reach out to that want to do guest posts. I already had the relationships with a lot of people that would come to the pitch deck roasts. I already had a lot of the background knowledge that were just kind of a refresher where I write my content pieces. Um, so it was a good fit. And now I have, like I said, I'm a partner in a small fund that's launching, and that was again a result of 2 years of from meeting with someone, helping them, because they were cool. It goes back to what I said earlier of having someone that was cool, and they would help me and give me connections. I would help them and give them connections. So they needed a fund administrator. They needed someone to structure it. I have those connections because through my Wall Street contacts. So I just provide, and just my knowledge with it, and the opportunity was there with that knowledge. So you know I went with it. And again, having a fund is it's different than being being, an analyst or being, a fellow or whatever. Because again, I can't do all that math. What I can do is I can, I can look at deals and I can see people and I can, plug people in because I just connect naturally and I can see through who's real and who's fake pretty easily. So all the knowledge in 2020 and 2021 and even 2022, I mean, it paid off. I mean, I'm thinking of doing a utopian journey probably at the start of next year or at the end of this year. Just a 4 year degree, like a real 4 year degree that you don't go to university for, that you learn on your own. Because I can trace my trajectory from mid 2018 to where I am now. And it's completely different. It's different to the point that if you told me in 2018 what I'd be doing now, I wouldn't believe you. Um, so the trajectory starts from going down into the abyss and staying in the abyss, and then slowly climbing and then dropping again. And it just that's what it is. I mean, you have to remember that the, the what's the quote I'm looking for? I can't remember the exact quote, but it's something along the lines of the depths of your abyss, precede the heights of your climb. you know that's not verbatim, but that's the general idea. And going back to the mental health and the mental wellness, it's that a lot of people get stuck in the abyss and they never make it out. They never attempt to climb, and if they do attempt to climb, it breaks them, and they never attempt again. And I feel like existence itself, regardless if it's entrepreneurship or venture capital or entertainment, whatever, it's one climb after the other. There's a Haitian proverb that says, "Beyond mountains are more mountains." And this notion of making it, I've made it. It's no such thing, because it's just, you don't leave a life of obstacle to enter a life without obstacles. It doesn't exist. You only have more. You only have greater obstacles and greater challenges. um, One of my favorite quotes is from the German poet, romantic poet, Wilke, Rainier Marie Wilke. And he said, "The goal of life is to be defeated by greater and greater things." And that's something that is just like mind blowing to a lot of people to hear, because people are like, "No, the goal of life is to, be number one and to do this and do this." And it's like, yeah, it can be, but you're going to be defeated, by a variety of things along the way. Everybody faces defeats. Everybody gets destroyed. Everybody loses their prestige. Everybody loses their money, and everybody has unshining moments. And that's part of life. You have to be prepared for that. You have to be prepared for everything to fail, and to feel this kind of the sense of defeat but not be defeated. I feel like that's kind of one of the skill sets a lot of people lack, is to face defeat but not be defeated.
Hmm. Yeah. So, I would say you picked a pretty risky business to get into, because just like you, even I have been reading a lot on VC over the past, I would say, 2 years. And there was this one book in particular which was called Mastering the VC Game, which piqued a lot of my interest because it is by an entrepreneur who also eventually became a VC. And he, wrote down the ups and downs of how VC deals are done in the market and how it's booming. And very recently, right, we have been working with a lot of startups. In this program, we are calling the startup program. And while working with the startup founders, right, I would say there is a lot of grandiosity involved, especially in the first time founders who are, reading all the TechCrunch articles, and they're watching all the YouTube videos about successful entrepreneurs. And if you are someone who have kind of been there, done that, you kind of understand that this is naive thinking. Just because you're just getting started, you're not quite sure as to how difficult it's gonna eventually get. So just being out there working with the founders and also trying to understand how VCs function, I have been very curious to understand. And you also mentioned that you are you are you are good at understanding psychology of the VC world now, because you're kind of into it. So I was just curious to understand if you could share some not strategies per se, but like few observations you have learned working with, let's say, or discussing, or having conversation with VCs about how they make decisions or how they think?
So yeah, so first off, there's too much grandiosity in founders. Like that's I mean, it's I think we need to temper that down. It's good to have goals and it's good to have dreams, but it's also good to be realistic, you know. But yeah, as far as I mean, here's the thing. So you have every day there's either an article from TechCrunch or Crunchbase or PitchBook that's going to say that the VC world is going to collapse because of the oncoming recession, or the VC world has so much dry powder that it's going to be the boom times. So, one, you kind of have to look at the opportunities of where you're operating in. The fund that I'm part of is operating in emerging markets. So, nothing in North America. You got to be Latin America. You got to be, Asia, maybe a little Africa, nothing Europe, nothing MENA. So again, you have to go where the opportunities are at. That's one. Two, you also have to realize that if you look at the history of venture capital and look at the history of entrepreneurship for the past 200 years, that every major company that we know today that's ubiquitous has started in a downturn or the result of some crash. You know, um, Facebook launched after the dot-com crash. That was the biggest one. Oh, even Jeff Bezos lost, his $50 million because he invested in pets.com, and it crashed, and there was just so many companies were destroyed in dot-com crash. But from that you have Facebook. From that you get, and then you get, let's say, 2008 financial crisis, 2009 financial crisis. After that comes Instagram, you know. So, and then you have the pandemic, and the pandemic, which everyone was a worldwide shut the world down economic crisis. What are we going to do? You had more unicorns minted during the pandemic that we had to come up with new terms, dragons and decacorns and hectacorns. So, you really have to be an opportunist. You have to not be skittish, because once you make an investment, you're stuck with that investment for years. You're with that company for 5 to 10 years, hoping that they don't fail. So you have to have a long-term view. You can't think about what's happening tomorrow or next week or this year. You have to have long-term view. Um, and you essentially have to make sure that that company, that you do invest in, you want to turn it into a unicorn. You want to have that giant investment. I mean, most founders think that, they get VC investment and that's it, they're set, and that's just the start. I mean, and a lot of venture capitalists, even if there's an opportunity for an acquisition, let's say you started a company and you have VC backing and someone wants to buy your company for $3 million. Let's do it. Problem is, VC doesn't want, say, a 2x return or a 3 times return. They don't. We want 100 times return, 50 times return. $3 million. That means someone is going to go 300 million. Work on it. So it might happen, it might not. But as a founder, you might be like, oh, but I could be a millionaire, and it's like, nope, you can't, because we know you can do better. And then if it doesn't, it could fail. So that's a caveat with it too. Um, but it just really depends. We talk about product market fit, which I'm sure you're aware of, but there also has to be founder VC fit. you know um, One thing that I always look for in founders, and it's rare, and I think that separates, the killers from the hunters from the prey, the killers from the victims, is that the founder is, I will get this done no matter what. Like, I'm gonna do this regardless if I have funding or not. I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna find a way. They're truly exceptional, resilient individuals. um so, it's hard to find those kind of people, because a lot of people fall into, at least what I've seen, like, we have the best idea ever, we're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, but we're at the stage where we have a logo and we have a deck. It's like, okay, and it's like, well, why don't you try this? Yeah, exactly. Let's go raise funds. And, again, there's this whole, I think that came from the pandemic, because, again, everybody was cutting checks, but it was just, there's a lot you have to look into. If you know people that have had successful exits in the past and are going to do it again, you're going to invest in them. If you had people that had successful failures, and I mean, they've raised millions and millions of dollars and the company imploded due to circumstances outside their control, but they're up again, they at least know what to do. They're up for another try. Write a check. But it's really tough for first time founders to do it unless they have some metrics to really excite people. You know, you have to have, monthly recurring revenue or annual revenue or something that's happening. And a lot of founders try to, we try to turn requirements into triumphs. And I see it in decks where it's like, look, we formed the company, we have the team, we created the product. Okay, that's required. That's required. What's next? Well, now we need $1 million to get a customer, and it's like, well, no, you don't. You know, um, so it just it's not easy. It's very hard to pick winners. Most don't. You have to have really exceptional people on the team. That's why, I mean, I wouldn't do a fund with just anybody. I have people I think that are two of the smartest people in the game, ex hedge funds, ex Wall Street, know how to do it, know how to see opportunities, have a variety of interests like myself, have a variety of experience because before they got into the game, they worked in different startups and worked in finance, all these different things. Um, but just the psychology of an investor, it really comes down to, is this going to be a company that is going to get me the prestige of being an investor in that company, so I can put the logo on the website? You know, um, is this going to be an investment that returns the fund? Is this going to be an investment that lets me get a Ferrari or a yacht? Is this going to be an investment that lets me brag about it to get more LPs to invest in the fund? Because people forget that VCs need LPs. LPs front the money. Okay, so if you're going to ask someone for $1 million or $500,000, they want to know that. Oh man, look at that! I'm gonna get my money back. I'm gonna get $5 million back or $10 million back. So it's about picking winners, and it's also very tough. I mean, I know someone who wanted to work with me a year or so ago, and they had a very small fund, and nothing happened with it. And I emailed them to do an article for me, and they said, "Oh, not right now. I just closed my fund." You know, it just did. Funds fail, companies fail, funds fail, people fail. As I always say, it's only money. Don't worry. you know. But that's the nature of the game. I mean, it is very risky, but everything is risky. Life is risky. It's better to take risks than to just play it safe, because taking those risks, you learn what you're capable of, and you learn you know what's possible. I mean, you can't play it safe. I feel like playing it safe is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do. And I don't mean like, take your life savings and put it all into a startup, because that's foolish. But I mean, take calculated risk, take a chance on yourself, go after your destiny, try and make something happen. I mean, everybody asks me what I do during the day, and I said, just trying to make things happen. Story of my life, just trying to make things happen.
Yeah. And it's very interesting that you guys are starting your own fund, because I was just, I would say, listening to the All In podcast. It's a podcast by, I would say, by four VCs, and one of them, Chamath, who is the founder of Social Capital. He he was, I would say, presenting a research deck that he and his team put together, and the research deck was about the state of VC right now. And he, on the first point of the deck, is that there are a lot of small groups of people who he terms as solo capitalists, who are really writing checks in the VC world right now. And a lot of founders are getting very inclined to go to solo capitalists, because for them it's, I would say, cheap capital. Because if you go to an established VC, right, you're going to give up more equity. But if you go to a solo capitalist or a small angel, right, he's going to be more generous with your company. He's going to also give you more help. He's going to be more, let me know if I can help you attitude, the kind of attitude you have. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So he was just talking about how what you guys are doing is really on the rise, and how the big VC guys, I'm assuming he's a big VC guy, like a conventional VC firm person, they are taking notice of it. And yeah, like, he was kind of excited but also concerned as to how things will roll out for the VC space in general for in the next couple of years or so. So what are your thoughts on it? Do you see a lot of this activity, or?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always some stupid Silicon Valley nickname, solo capitalist, angel, super angel. It's always some stupid nickname they have to come up with to feel
Yeah,
superior.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
so creative. At the end of the day, it's an investor. It's someone that's going to write you a check. Okay,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
if
yeah,
and essentially, if you have someone that believes in you that wants to write you a check, then they're obviously going to want to see you succeed, especially if they're a small investor. A big fund,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, they're gonna they probably have people like a department in place to help you, which is true. I mean, what's his name? The founder of LinkedIn. I can't think of his name. I have a blank. It'll come to me just because my brain's going in a variety of directions. Um,
Yeah.
but he has a firm that he's backing, like Sweat Equity Ventures. Where Sweat Equity Ventures, they will, experienced people will come in and work for your startup, and they will
Uh-huh.
take sweat equity because the fund will pay them a salary. So like they'll try and get you.
I
I
see.
can't. I feel embarrassed. I can see his face, but I have so many different things bouncing in my brain right now. But
Even
yeah,
I forgot.
yeah, exactly. Just I see his the blitz. He's the blitz scaling guy. I did an article on him like last week. But yeah. I mean, listen, you want to have someone that believes in you. I think whether you're a founder or VC, a creator, whatever it is, you need a patron. You need
Yeah,
someone to cut you a
yeah,
check, but you want to have someone to believe in the believer.
yeah.
And once you have that someone, you hold on to them. You know,
Yeah,
um, you hold on to that person for dear life because they're so rare. It's so rare to find someone that believes in you so much that they want to be a part of your journey and they want to invest in you. Whether they invest their time, whether they cut you a check, whatever. Um, it's a hard thing to find. So that's what I think needs to be out there because again, you're gonna have a relationship with this person for years. You know, they're gonna
yeah,
be
yeah,
with you for the entire journey, and as much as you want to succeed, they want their money back and then some. So they want to succeed.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, I mean, again, there's different methodologies for it, and there's different strategies and whatnot. But I mean, I think value-added investors are the way to go because there are always. I don't care how good you are as a founder. There's always going to be a gap. There's always going to be a gap that
yeah,
someone can fill or someone can provide. And at the end of the day, we all want to be successful. We all want to grow this, and we want to make something happen.
yeah. And that gap usually costs, yes, money, but also a lot of time. And that time might actually result in failure for a lot of companies.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, there's 99% of startups fail. I don't want they say it's 9 out of 10, I'm saying 99%. And I've been part of startups that have failed. I've been part of startups that have raised millions and lost. I've been part of startups that couldn't raise. Um, and I mean that's just the game. I mean, you have to understand what you're getting into and you have to understand how to approach it. And I tell everyone, I was like, listen, make it happen. Find something on your own because there's a lot of like founder weakness where it's like, well, I can't do it without $3 million, and it's like, well, I guess you can't do it, because like we want to invest in people that all right, I did it myself, I scaled it. This is the furthest I can get it. I need to break $500,000 a year. I need capital to do it, and that's much more appealing than I created the deck but I can't build the product because I don't, have the money. And it's like, well, that's what so many people do because so many people hit me up and I don't do it because it's a waste of time. That hey, can you look at my deck? Hey, can I pick your brain? Hey, I'm like, no, like, listen, if you're really serious, then you'd have to like hire me as a consultant to help you because it's not going to be one phone call. I can't go over in a 30-minute Zoom call everything wrong in your entire business. It's going to take time away from the things I'm doing, and there's plenty of resources you can use that I created that you can read and learn, and that'll help you. But at the end of the day, like, I don't. Like, it goes back to the beginning of our conversation. I don't want to be involved in everything. I want to be involved in things that are going to make sense to me. But every day, people hit me up with different things. Just complete strangers hitting me up with, I'm doing this in this space, and I think you'd be good for it. And it's like, I have nothing to do with this space. I have nothing to do in the sustainable shark farming space or whatever stupid idea they have that I have nothing to do. They see that, oh, I see you live in Miami. That's close to the ocean. Well, we're creating a sustainable shark farming habitat. you know, so it's always something stupid like that.
Hmm, yeah. So when you are, for example, when you get together to launch a fund, right? do you guys have to have like a thesis that okay, these are the kind of companies we want to invest in the coming years? Yeah. How does that work?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I came on post thesis. Yeah. So that I came on post thesis. I came on at the very tail end because I was just advising them for 2 years, and by advising, I mean plugging them in with possible LPs and plugging them in with strategic contacts and all that. Um, but they already established the thesis. They do it through a lot of research. They were getting 1,000 decks a month, so they were doing. They know what they're looking for, but again, their main thesis came from research, looking at the different markets, looking at what's going to be the most profitable, looking at in a giant focus 5, 10, 15, 20 years plus of how to really scale this from a small fund into something that's 100 million under management, a billion under management, like a real player fund. So it comes down to having a lot of expertise and a lot of research, and it takes a lot of time. Like I said, I knew them for 2 years before I joined up, and they were always on phone calls, doing research, generating their own internal reports, all that stuff. It's not something you can do overnight. It's something that it requires just a lot of contingencies, a lot of market research, a lot of charts, a lot of graphs, because you're playing with other people's money, and in a case your money as well. So you want to have some major exits. You want to have a success. That's the whole point of doing this. We don't do this to say, you know, we have a fund. I mean, I do it to say I put the fund in fundraising, but I mean, other than that, just to say, yeah, I'm involved. We'll look at it. But again, most of the stuff that come to me, I don't look at because it's not in emerging markets. It has no market penetration in a geography that we're focused on. But people don't care. They say, well, I mean, the market in North Wisconsin is emerging for this product. And I was like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Leave me alone. Like it might be something new for you, but it's this notion that we have an idea, invest in the entrepreneur. And it's like, okay, when you find one, let me know. you know, like that's what it comes down to. I mean, if you can't, if as a founder, you can't make a deck or you can't build a company or you can't test, I mean, there's no point. I mean, we see all these terrible decks in our pitch deck roasts, and we know they're terrible, and the founders know they're terrible, and they want to get roasted so they can learn. But the fact that they have to like it's common sense stuff that like you should just know. Like there's certain things we roast that like, all right, take this out. But then there's one that's upcoming where it lists like the following, and it's like Instagram 35 followers. And it's like, why even put that in there? Like that, it's like, I mean, what are you going to say? Oh, it's got some real tastemakers, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. Like, like again, why put that in there? That has nothing. That hurts you more than anything. And people are going to say, well, we don't have a that's organic. We don't even post on Instagram. They just love the logo. Like it's like metrics that don't matter, but they think again, it goes back to saying, turning requirements into triumphs, where it's like, we have 100 people on Twitter. It's going to be awesome. And it's like, okay, well, talk to us when you have 100,000 real non-bot people that are going to be like, you can put a link out and get, let's say 6,000 downloads. I'll give you 6%, which is really high. But people don't realize that. They just say, give me money. That's what it is. Give me your time, your money, your expertise. You're tired, you're hungry, you're poor, your soul. Give me everything. Give it all.
Yeah, yeah. So, one more question from what you said. If someone is getting 1,000 decks a month, how does the due diligence process look like? I'm just assuming it's just a lot of laborious work to go through everything.
You get to the point where you can bang through decks in like 30 seconds. Like, and you can kind of go, because I've seen hundreds of decks, and 99% of them were terrible. You go through decks where, at least my process when I see them, is that okay, if I can tell within a minute if it's something I want to take a second look at and re-examine. But if it's something that's so poorly designed that I'd missed the opportunity, I'm not going to go back to it. And most of them are so poorly designed. I mean, again, that's why we do the roast. We do the roast for general education and comedy, because people need to realize how terrible it is. And like the whole point of a deck is to excite someone to give you money. It is to excite someone. It is to show in a concise, which no one understands what that means, because when I say concise, I mean 8 to 12 slides. I do not mean 27 to 52. Okay? Like that's not a deck, that's a full backyard, you know? Um yeah, it's you show to people a concise way of looking at an opportunity that could strike their fancy, and it's not meant to show off, like to fill stuff in, where it's like we did a survey of I don't even know how many people. We did a survey and they love it. And it'll be like someone will be like, I love this product. I would buy it, John. It's like, okay, thanks, Dad. like people put that kind of stuff in there, or they show like there's always the TAM slide, which I think is kind of ridiculous because now it's like every industry is always going to be $1 billion industry or something that they can, if we don't, so you can show your little sliver. If we can take 1% of the $1 billion or whatever, or something stupid. And then you have the people that are like, this is $1 trillion industry, which already is a huge red flag for me. As soon as they mention trillion, I run for the hills, because it's like, let's try and generate a couple $1,000s first before we start talking about trillions. You don't even know how many zeros are in that. Okay, let's keep it down. But people just don't understand, and I feel like in this day and age, you can go to places like OpenVC.app and you could read an article in 5 minutes that shows you what we think is a great pitch deck, how it should be structured. And then you could go to a place like Upwork and you could spend a couple $100s and you can try and put something together that looks presentable and you could have it done in like a day and you'll be good. But people do it themselves and they're not designers and they haven't used PowerPoint since Clippy was the mascot 20 years ago and giving advice. And, it's just, it comes off bad. And it's like, you are asking for millions of dollars. It's such, I mean, it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but if you realize it, it's a lot of money. It's money that the vast majority of people would never have in their entire life, and you're just asking for it casually, like, oh, we need $3.5 million. I could do it for, I mean, honestly, I could do it for three, but 3.5 is good, And it's like, all right, but you haven't put any thought into the deck, into the business. You have no metrics. You don't have a business. You have an idea that 5 people like, and you don't have any revenue. You don't have anything that's really cool. You don't have anything to get people excited. And no matter how many times I keep saying it, people just ignore it. They go on and try and do it, and that's why they never raise, because it's just the whole strategy is wrong.
Yeah. And I spent a lot of time on OpenVC. I think I read your article on 5 research papers all VCs should read.
Oh yeah, the new one. Yeah, yeah. There's 13.
Oh yeah, 13. Yeah, yeah. I read it and I also got on email because I subscribed to the newsletter. And I also saw that, there are a lot of sister companies, I would say, sister projects that OpenVC has links to. So there was a link to, I would say, a website which you can go to and see all the different models for, financial projections for your company.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean it's the most open and transparent website out there. It provides all the resources for free. So if you're really interested, you just click a button. There's no cost. You can click, you can see it, and just people still they still are not serious about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I wanted to understand, like, how did you guys come up with that? Like, what was the ethos behind building such an open company?
So that would you would have to speak to the founders, because I'm not the founder of OpenVC. I just put, like I said, the fund and funds. um, you know, I'm simply the content connector and pitch deck host, roast host. Um, but yeah, they the founder, Steph Nasser. I mean, he comes from a startup background, and he came up with the idea well before I knew of it, and he's been working on it for a while, creating the platform, the tech, all that stuff. So but there really wasn't anything like that. I mean, you have other VC databases, and there's always someone that is on Gumroad, which is like, give me $50 and you'll get the database of everybody, and it's like, you don't have to spend $50 because they probably just pillaged OpenVC's database, or they probably pillaged someone else's to do it. And yeah, essentially, you know, he and his co-founder are very smart guys. They came up with it, and I came on with my my vast network of connections and my desire for venture capital and my ability to generate lots of high quality and entertaining content very quickly. But it's a cool thing. I mean, I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm happy to see it grow. You know, it's been really fun. It's been really fun to be a part of a startup that's actually, you know, filling a real need instead of like, well, do you like social media? Well, we're going to do social media, but get this, it's for insects. Like, you know, so if you have, you know, like a pet tarantula or a pet spite, like, or a pet grasshopper, they can have their own profile. It's going to be great. You know, like there's always some stupid idea that is impossible to scale, that has so much competition from ginormous companies that would crush them instantly, with thousands of employees, and people want to do that idea. It's nice to see, you know, a small team doing an idea that is filling a need and filling a gap that is just, you know, is useful and providing a lot of value for the founders and investors at large.
Yeah, because I would say I was talking to a lot of people from Pitch Deck, like the people who are selling Pitch Deck to clients and customers. I called them for one of the VCs I was working with, and like my job was to basically talk to the Pitch Deck guys and try to understand the cost of what a subscription of Pitch Deck would cost, and it was a lot of money, right? I think it's in tens of thousands of dollars. And then I see OpenVC and all the information that we were looking for. We don't want the whole thing, right? We don't want all the reports and all the market segmentation. We don't want that. We just want like basic information about the industry. And OpenVC has all of that, and you pay nothing for it. So I was pretty psyched by the whole idea of it. Yeah, yeah.
It's it's extremely cool. I mean, like I said, and there's a ton of information on there. I have so many articles that are just backlogged, you know, that were just because we release one article a week. So I have so many different things coming down the pipeline that are just going to be helpful. I mean, one of the ones that I'm excited about is a unicorn primer, because through my research I discovered that it's not just unicorns. There's other stupid names, you know. It's there's Pegasus, and there's minicorns, and there's unicorns, and there's zebras, and there's camels, and there's dragons, and it just there's so many stupid names to classify companies, but people like, here's the one article that lists them all. And believe me, it was very difficult to find pictures of Pegasus and unicorns and all these, like, you know, fantasy creatures. I feel like I had to go into Game of Thrones to find all this stuff. You know, so yeah, there's so that's coming. There's a lot of cool features coming out. So yeah, it's definitely a fun thing to be a part of. Again, it's something that I'm proud to be part of, and I'm proud to contribute to. As opposed to, again, you know, we're doing a Lyft or an Uber for applesauce. You know, like something, again, people don't need and nobody cares about, and it's never gonna work.
Yep. I think I'm gonna talk to Steph in a week or so.
Okay, good, good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He booked a slot, so I'm gonna ask him a lot of questions about what compelled him to do the whole thing and give it away for free.
Yeah. And ask him the important question. What do you think of Shaun as a pitch deck roast host? Is he too comedic? Is he too mean? Is he too serious? Yeah, ask him the hard questions.
Definitely. I'll also link the events bright page where if people want to actually come to the roast, they can actually yeah they can see the get the tickets from. And I would say I have one yeah I would say I have one last question which I wanted to ask very much in the beginning, but I'm asking right now. Who does the illustrations for the Utopian Journey Substack?
Oh, okay, that would be the wonderfully talented, and in my opinion, my favorite and best comic book artist on the planet, Fernando Melick. Fernando Melick and I have been working together since let me think, 2019. Yeah, the start of 2019. And yeah, he originally, I found him because I'm a fan of comic books. I was trying to find an artist, and I was walking by my bookshelf, and I said, you know, I like his art. Let me find him. And I just reached out to him, and he got back to me immediately. And for my screenplays, to get studios and producers interested, I would draw out the trailers. So I would have him do like concept art and trailers and all that stuff. Um, and then during the pandemic, I pitched him the idea of Utopian Journey, and he loved it, and he totally gets it. He totally, he's like, I would love to do this. Let's get it going. So yeah, we've been working together for years, and yeah, he's so talented. I mean, he's with usually with artists, there's like they have their own interpretation, and as the writer, you have to find the balance. You have to find, you know, the balance between what he sees and what you see. And with him, there's really no issues. I've he's never had to really redraw anything. Um, I think maybe in the early stage he had to redraw something. We were doing the concept, but it's to the point where I send him a script, he sends me the initial the first stage, and I say it's done, and then that's it. Like he we're great because I give him the freedom as an artist to express himself and show off his talent, whereas a lot of other people that are writers are just like, I don't like how the angle is, or I don't like how this is, or I don't, and it's very like it makes the artist job hard where they have to go back and rewrite, they have to go back and redraw, they have to go back and resketch, and I don't want that. I want to. He just comes off the bat, and I have so much artwork that I never released that just were for different concepts of mine that I just have. And to me, it's kind of like, it's the coolest thing ever. To it's like with startups, but also with content and with pretty much anything with the act of creation itself. Is I think the greatest feeling, at least to me, is to take something up here in your mind that only you can see, and then transfer that to reality. And that goes with everything. And I feel like, if, as I said earlier, if you're not creating something, then your mind gets sick, So you have to kind of create something that you can be proud of. And with Utopian Journey, I mean, I've been doing it for almost 2 years now, probably close to 200,000 words, probably close to over 100 issues. It's very valuable. There's a lot of cool ideas I have to expand it and do stuff. But yeah, it's something that, I, even if it doesn't reach the financial threshold that I want it to reach, it's still something I'm extremely proud of and can look back on and say, you want to know what? This cost me X amount of dollars, but I helped a lot of people and it was very personally fulfilling to me. And that's why I keep doing it.
Hmm. And apart from that, I feel that you have a very interesting natural ability to connect with a lot of people and make them extremely comfortable very fast. And do you think you learned it, or that's just how you are since you were a very young boy?
I think it was acquired over the years, to be honest. Um, I think it's also because, again, I used to run nightlife here in Miami for almost 2 decades, and I've dealt with every personality type that you could imagine. I've dealt with some of the richest people in the world. I've dealt with celebrities. I've dealt with students. I mean, I've dealt with everyone. So just having that exposure to people who come, from a variety of backgrounds in different countries, I'm able to click with them because I understand. And then also, I think the superpower comes from I know who to avoid. Like who to run for my life from, because you begin to see that. You begin to see, um, especially if you learn to study people, and then you actually study psychology. I mean, with Utopian Journey, I studied a lot of psychology during the pandemic. Um, and one of the things I learned, especially through Carl Jung and Jungian archetypes, you can see how people are, and you can take the test to see how you are, and just certain archetypes, and you run from them. you know, you run from them. So yeah, it's a very useful skill. But yeah, I mean, I've always been a people person. I've always been a forward facing. Granted, it hasn't always worked because I had to deal with some of the worst people in the world and just terrible people. But at the same time, you deal with nice people and good people, and it balances out.
Yeah, I would say a pretty interesting book on kinds of people is by this author called Robert Greene. I would say two books in particular. Yeah, which is Human Nature and 48 Laws of Power.
Of course, yeah. It's he annoys me though because he still hasn't said what the 49th law of power is, and I think it's because he's saving it to use against his readers if they ever come after him. That's my theory. My theory is that you can't have a book called 48 Laws of Power and then a book called the 50th Law and you skip 49. Unless you're like, I will not tell you the 49th law because one day I may have to use it against you. But yeah, I was reading, I found 48 Laws of Power and I was in high school in 2002. You know, so that was extremely helpful, especially navigating, Silicon Swamp, Miami. You know, it's extremely it was extremely helpful, and all his books are helpful. I mean, I have them all, but I feel like you can't get siloed into that. You have to keep expanding. So, I mean, I read Carl Jung, I read Nietzsche, Viktor Frankl. I mean, I'm constantly reading different, philosophers, psychologists. Just no one has an understanding of the human mind or the human being. You have to constantly be learning and upgrading, and just staying on your toes, and having an edge, because no matter how crazy people are, they will always surprise you. You think you've seen it all, and you will find someone new to do something that's just even more crazy, and even more stupid, and you kind of have to be able to recognize that those personas and avoid them at all costs.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, I would say this has been a great run for us.
Oh, thank you. Do we have theme music? Let's play the theme music. End it out.